In this video, we will go over all the picks and method of victory predictions that have been made by the UFC Prediction Channels on YouTube for every fight on the UFC 327 card. And we start with the first fight of the night. Opening up the early prelims, we have a fight in the welterweight division between Charles Radtke and Francisco Prado. Charles Radtke is 12 years older than his opponent Francisco Prado. Over his last 5 fights, he has 3 victories and 2 losses. And Francisco Prado, who's only 23 years old, has had 5 fights in the UFC, but not with such good results. 4 losses and only 1 victory. And with average odds of minus 185, Charles Radtke is the favorite in this matchup, and Francisco Prado the underdog with plus 155. Although Charles Radtke is not such a big favorite in odds, he is a huge favorite in picks, because 90 channels out of 96 are picking him to win for 94%. But he's even a bigger favorite in picks by the best predictors, because they pick him 100% to win with 8 out of 8. And he's also picked 100% by the best favorite predictors and the best underdog predictors with 10 out of 10 and 8 out of 8. And as a quick reminder over those new to the channel, the best predictors are highlighted in green and they have the highest return on investment with all of their picks over the last 50 events, aka the pound for pound best predictors. The best favorite predictors have a little star icon in front of the name and they have the highest return on investment with all of their picks on favorite fighters in odds. And the best underdog predictors have a little dog icon in front of the name and they have the highest return on investment with all of their picks on underdogs only. But I'm also tracking all the method of victory predictions these channels make. Let's find out how to predict each fighter to win their fight. For a KO TKO victory, we have 5 channels for Charles Radtke and 1 for Francisco Prado. 9 are predicting Charles Radtke to win via submission, but 0 for Prado. But most of the channels are expecting that this fight will go to the scorecards. And most are predicting that Charles Radtke wins via decision, which is picked by 49 channels out of 66 for almost 75%. And only 2 channels are picking Francisco Prado via decision. And the channels with the highest return on investment with their method of victory predictions, aka the best MOV predictors, most of them, 3 out of 4, are picking Charles Radtke to win via decision. And also the odds makers are expecting that this is the most likely outcome for this fight with odds of plus 160. But what I find pretty interesting is the second most likely outcome according to the odds makers, which is a KO TKO victory for Prado with odds of plus 240. But that's picked by only 1 channel. Up next we go to the middleweight division for a fight between Kelvin Gastelum and Vicente Luque. Kelvin Gastelum has won 3 out of his last 5 fights and Vicente Luque 2 out of 5. And in odds, Kelvin Gastelum is the big favorite with minus 275 and Vicente Luque the underdog with plus 225. And almost all of the prediction channels are agreeing with these odds, because 92 channels out of 98 are predicting Kelvin Gastelum to win this fight for 94%. And just like the first fight of the night, he's also picked 100% by the best predictors, but also 100% by the best favorite and underdog predictors, with 8 out of 8, 10 out of 10 and 9 out of 9. So by which method of victory are they predicting each fighter to win? A lot of channels are going with a KO TKO victory for Kelvin Gastelum, which is picked by 27 channels out of 66 for over 40%. One channel predicts Vicente Luque to win via submission, but most of the channels are going with a decision victory for Kelvin Gastelum, which is picked by 36 channels out of 66 for 55%, and 2 for Vicente Luque. All of the best MOV predictors are picking Kelvin Gastelum to win this fight, but they are slightly leaning towards a KO TKO victory, which is picked by 3 out of 5. And also the odds makers are slightly leaning towards a KO TKO with odds of plus 160 versus a decision, which is very close with odds of plus 175. And the last fight of the early prelims is between Chris Padilla and MarQuel Mederos in the lightweight division. Chris Padilla has had 4 fights in the UFC and won all 4 of them. MarQuel Mederos is coming off 1 victory from the Dana White Contender Series and is now on a 3-fight winning streak in the UFC. And in this matchup, Chris Padilla is the slight favorite with minus 165 and with plus 135, MarQuel Mederos is the slight underdog. And also here the favorite fighter in odds is also the favorite fighter in picks, although not so huge as the previous 2. 79 channels out of 94 are picking Chris Padilla to win for 84%, so a pretty big favorite. The best predictors over the last 50 events are picking him 6 out of 8 for 75%, but he becomes a really big favorite in picks by the best favorite predictors with 9 out of 10 for 90%. And the underdog MarQuel Mederos is picked by the best underdog predictors only 1 out of 8, so they don't have a lot of faith in this underdog. And for the method of victory predictions, we have 10 channels predicting a KO TKO victory for Padilla. 4 are predicting him to win via submission, but most channels are predicting Padilla to win via decision, which is picked by 40 out of 64 channels for 62.5%. And 10 channels are picking Mederos to win via decision. And all of the best method of victory predictors, 6 out of 6 for 100% are going with a decision victory for Padilla, which is also the most likely outcome according to the bookies with odds of plus 160. Opening up the prelims, we have a fight in the women's strawweight division between Tatiana Suarez and Luque Godinez. Suarez has won 4 out of her last 5 fights and only lost when she fought for the championship belt against Zhang Weili. And Luque Godinez has won 3 out of her last 5 fights. In odds, this fight is pretty close. Tatiana Suarez is the favorite with minus 160 and with plus 130, Godinez the underdog. But in picks by the YouTube prediction channels, Tatiana Suarez is a pretty big favorite. 74 channels out of 97 for over 75% are picking Suarez to win. But she's even a bigger favorite in picks by the best predictors, because they pick her 7 out of 8 for 87.5%. And she's also a huge favorite in picks by the best favorite predictors with 9 out of 10 for 90%. And Godinez, the underdog, is picked by the best underdog predictors only 2 out of 9. So in picks, Tatiana Suarez is a much bigger favorite than she is in odds, especially by the best predictors. And for the method of victory predictions, we have 0 channels expecting a KO TKO win in this fight. 2 channels are predicting Suarez to win via submission, but most channels are expecting that this fight will go to the scorecards. And 51 out of 66 channels, for 77%, are expecting Suarez to win via decision, and 13 for Godinez. And also the best MOV predictors, 5 out of 6, are picking Suarez to win by a decision. But in odds it's pretty close between these two ladies, with a slight lean towards a decision for Suarez with plus 125 versus plus 150 for a decision Godinez. So a pretty big difference between the odds makers and the prediction channels. The next fight is in the lightweight division between Mateusz Gamrot and Esteban Ribovics. Over their last 5 fights, Mateusz Gamrot has won 3 out of 5 and Esteban Ribovics 4 out of 5. And in this fight, the favorite fighter in odds is Mateusz Gamrot with minus 190 and the underdog is Esteban Ribovics with plus 155. And in picks by the YouTube prediction channels, this fight is the closest so far. Mateusz Gamrot is the favorite and he's picked by 63 channels out of 99 for 64%. And in picks by the best predictors, he's not the favorite. And it's even, because both fighters are picked 4 out of 8 for 50%. But in picks by the best favorite predictors, the favorite fighter in odds, Mateusz Gamrot, is the slight favorite with 6 out of 10. And the underdog, Esteban Ribovics, is picked by the best underdog predictors 3 out of 9. So they have some faith in this underdog. And for the method of victory predictions, we have 8 channels predicting Ribovics to win via KO or TKO. 0 channels are going with a submission victory, but most of the channels expect that this fight will go to the scorecards. And 2/3 of all the channels, 32 out of 63, are picking Mateusz Gamrot to win via decision, and 13 for Esteban. But the best MOV predictors are split on this one. 2 out of 4 go with a decision for Mateusz Gamrot, and 2 out of 4 go with a KO TKO for Esteban Ribovics. But the odds makers are clearly expecting Mateusz Gamrot to win via decision with average odds of minus 109. Up next we have a fight between Kevin Holland and Randy Brown in the welterweight division. And over their last 5 fights, Kevin Holland won only 2 out of his last 5. And Randy Brown won 3 out of 5. And in average odds, this fight is super close. Randy Brown is a tiny favorite with minus 116 and with minus 104 Kevin Holland the tiny underdog. But it's basically even. And it's also really close in picks by the YouTube prediction channels. Randy Brown is the slight favorite. 54 channels out of 99 are predicting him to win for 54.5%. And in picks by the best predictors, it's even. And both fighters are picked 4 out of 8 for 50%. And for the best favorite predictors, something is going on with my stats and I can't figure it out. Randy Brown is the slight favorite with 5 out of 9, not 10, for 56%. And Kevin Holland 4 out of 9, not 10, for 44%. But I'll fix this for next week. And the same results with the best underdog predictors. They slightly favor Randy Brown with 5 out of 9. For the method of victory predictions, 12 channels predict Kevin Holland to win by a KO or TKO and 4 for Randy Brown. 16 channels pick Kevin Holland to win via submission and 0 for Randy Brown. And for a decision win, 5 pick Kevin Holland to win and 25 for Randy Brown. And the best MOV predictors, 2 out of 4 are picking Kevin Holland via decision, which goes against the most likely outcome according to the odds makers, which is a decision victory for Randy Brown with average odds of plus 165. And for the future prelim of the night, we have a fight in the featherweight division between Patricio Pitbull and Aaron Pico. Both are fighters from Bellator but are now in the UFC. Patricio Pitbull lost his UFC debut but won his second UFC fight. And also Aaron Pico lost his UFC debut. With average odds of minus 325, Aaron Pico is the biggest favorite on this card, which is kind of refreshing to see, because in 2026 we have many cards where there are huge favorites with odds of minus 600 or higher. Which means that this card has a lot of fights that are close in odds. And with plus 255, the Pitbull is the underdog. Aaron Pico is the big favorite in picks by the YouTube prediction channels with 79 out of 99 channels for 80%. And he's also a big favorite in picks by the best predictors with 7 out of 8 and the best favorite predictors with 8 out of 10. And the underdog, Patricio Pitbull, is picked by the best underdog predictors only 1 out of 9. And for the method of victory predictions, most channels are expecting Aaron Pico to win by KO or TKO, which is picked by 33 channels out of 67 for almost 50%. And 13 channels are going with a KO TKO victory for Pitbull. For this fight, now the single channel predicts a submission victory. And for a decision, we have one channel picking Patricio Pitbull and 20 for Aaron Pico. And the best MOV predictors are aligned with the prediction channels overall, because 3 out of 6 are going with a KO TKO victory for Aaron Pico and 2 out of 6 for a decision, which is also in line with the odds makers, with plus 160 for a KO TKO and plus 170 for a decision for Aaron Pico. Opening up the main card, we have a fight in the featherweight division between Swanson and Nate Landwehr. Over the last 5 fights, Swanson won 3 out of 5 and Nate Landwehr 2 out of 5. And in average odds, this fight is the closest on this card. And it's basically even, but Nate Landwehr is the slight favorite with minus 113 and Swanson the tiny underdog with minus 107. But very surprisingly, it's not close in picks at all. And Swanson is the big favorite. He's picked by 78 channels out of 99 for 79%. And he's also the big favorite in picks by the best predictors with 6 out of 7 for 86% and the best favorite predictors with 8 out of 9 for 89%. And also the best underdog predictors have Swanson as the favorite with 6 out of 8 for 75%. So we see a big difference here in picks and in odds. Now let's find out if there's also such a big difference between the picks and the odds with the method of victory predictions. Most channels are picking Swanson to win via KO or TKO, which is picked by 41 channels out of 63 or 2/3 of all the channels, and 7 for Nate Landwehr. 2 channels pick Nate Landwehr to win via submission, and for a decision victory we have 10 for Swanson and 3 for Landwehr. All of the best MOV predictors, 4 out of 4, are picking Swanson to win by KO or TKO. The odds makers have 4 props that are basically even in odds as the most likely outcome for this fight, which are Swanson by KO TKO plus 285, Swanson decision plus 280, and Nate Landwehr KO TKO plus 310 or decision plus 280. So again, a big difference between the odds makers and the prediction channels. This looks to be a great betting opportunity, and this might end up on the best betting opportunities later on in this video. And speaking of finding great betting opportunities, most bettors lose because the odds are stacked against them. But Sick Fate flips that. They scan odds from 20 plus sportsbooks for over and under props and compare them to their own true odds, calculated by custom AI models. If a line is off by 3% or more, it gets flagged as a plus EV opportunity. Then you get alerted instantly with the exact line, sportsbook, edge percentage and recommended bet size, so you can act before the line moves. And what I really like, as the predictions tracker, everything is tracked. No cherry-picked wins, no hiding losses, every pick is visible. So if you're betting beyond UFC and want a smarter, data-driven approach, check out sickfate.com. Use my link in the description for 20% off any subscription or try it free for 7 days. A big thank you to sickfate.com for sponsoring this video. Up next we go to the glass cannon weight division, light heavyweight division, for a fight between Dominick Reyes and Johnny Walker. Dominick Reyes has 3 victories and 2 losses over his last 5 fights, all via KO or TKO. And he's also lost against Carlos Ulberg and Jerry Procházka, who are fighting in the main event for the light heavyweight belt. And Johnny Walker has won 2 out of his last 5 fights, has 2 losses and 1 no contest. And this fight is also pretty close in odds. Dominick Reyes is the slight favorite, minus 145, and with plus 120, Johnny Walker, the slight underdog. And the slight favorite in odds, Dominick Reyes, is the favorite in picks by the YouTube Prediction Channels. 70 channels out of 104 are picking Reyes to win for 67%. But he's even a bigger favorite in picks by the best predictors with 6 out of 8 for 75%. And he's also a big favorite by the best favorite predictors with 7 out of 10 for 70%. And the underdog, Johnny Walker, is picked by the best underdog predictors only 1 out of 9. And for the method of victory predictions, well, almost every channel expects that this fight will end by a KO or TKO. And 2/3 of them, 46 out of 69, are picking Dominick Reyes to win by a KO or TKO. And 21 for Johnny Walker. And we only have 2 channels that are going against the grain. And one is picking Johnny Walker via submission, and the other one, Johnny Walker, via decision. In picks by the best MOV predictors, it's pretty close, but they slightly favor Dominick Reyes by a KO or TKO with 4 out of 7 versus 3 out of 7 for a KO TKO for Johnny Walker. And also the odds makers expect that this fight will end in a KO or TKO with plus 110 for Dominick Reyes and plus 190 for Johnny Walker. But my official prediction for this fight is a double KO TKO. Up next we have a fight between Curtis Blaydes and Josh Hokit in the heavyweight division. Curtis Blaydes has won 3 out of his last 5 fights, and Josh Hokit is coming off a win from the Dana White Contender Series and won his first 2 fights in the UFC and has won every fight by a KO or TKO. And here we have another fight that is really close in odds. Curtis Blaydes is the slight favorite with minus 135 in average odds, and the underdog is Josh Hokit with plus 115. And Curtis Blaydes is also a slight favorite in picks by the YouTube Prediction Channels. 56 channels out of 102 for 55% are picking Curtis Blaydes to win. But he's a bigger favorite in picks by the best predictors, because they pick him 6 out of 8 for 75%. And the best favorite predictors pick him 6 out of 10 for 60%. So pretty close. And the slight underdog Josh Hokit is picked by the best underdog predictors 3 out of 9. So some of them like this underdog. But as you know, over the next coming days I keep tracking predictions, which also include predictions from the best predictors and the best favorite and underdog predictors and the best method of victory predictors. And fights like this and many others on this card might look different when more predictions have been tracked. And to get the latest daily updated picks and support this channel, consider becoming a member on my Patreon. A link can be found in the video description. And for the method of victory predictions, we have 16 channels predicting a KO TKO victory for Curtis Blaydes and 24 for Josh Hokit. Now the single channel predicts a submission victory for this fight, and for a decision victory we have 21 channels picking Curtis Blaydes to win and 2 for Josh Hokit. And so far most of the best MOV predictors have skipped their method of victory prediction for this fight, and we only have 2 predictions. One for Curtis Blaydes by decision and 1 KO TKO for Josh Hokit. And according to the odds makers, we have 3 likely outcomes for this fight. A KO TKO for Curtis Blaydes with plus 220, a decision for him with plus 240, or a KO TKO victory for Josh Hokit with plus 225. For the co-main event of the evening, we have a fight between Azamat Murzakanov and Paulo Costa in the light heavyweight division. Murzakanov has won all his fights in the UFC and is on a 6-fight winning streak. Paulo Costa is moving up in weight class, but over his last 5 fights he won 2 out of 5. And in this matchup, Azamat Murzakanov is the favorite with minus 205 and Paulo Costa the underdog with plus 170. And in picks by the YouTube Prediction Channels, Murzakanov is also the favorite. 80 channels out of 105 are picking him to win for over 75%. But in picks by the best predictors, he's even a bigger favorite, because they pick him 7 out of 8 for 87.5%. And he's also the big favorite by the best favorite predictors with 8 out of 10 for 80%. And do the best underdog predictors have faith in the underdog, Paulo Costa? Well, not really, because he's only picked by 1 out of 9. And for the method of victory predictions, we have 25 channels out of 65 picking Azamat Murzakanov to win by KO or TKO, and 4 for Paulo Costa by KO TKO. Now the single channel expects a submission for this fight, and for a decision victory we have 24 for Murzakanov and 12 for Costa. But the best MOV predictors are kind of all over the place. But for now, 2 out of 5 are going with a decision victory for Murzakanov, which is also in line with the odds makers. because according to them the most likely outcome for this fight is a decision victory for Murzakanov with plus 170, followed closely by a KO TKO victory for him with plus 195. For the main event of the evening, we have a fight for the vacant light heavyweight championship belt between Jiří Procházka and Carlos Ulberg. The previous light heavyweight champion of the world, Jiří Procházka, won 3 out of his last 5 fights, and the only fights that he lost in the UFC are against Alex Pereira, who vacated his light heavyweight belt. And he's fighting against Carlos Ulberg. He lost his UFC debut, but since then he's been on a 9 fight winning streak. And this is another fight on this card that is really close in odds and basically even. Jiří Procházka is a tiny favorite with minus 117 and with minus 102. Carlos Ulberg a tiny underdog. So in odds it's basically even. But in picks we have a clear favorite, which is Jiří Procházka. And he is picked by 66 channels out of 104 for 63.5%. He's also the favorite in picks by the best predictors with 5 out of 8 and by the best favorite predictors as well with 7 out of 10. And the best underdog predictors pick the tiny underdog Carlos Ulberg 3 out of 9. But as I said in previous videos, when the odds are this close we can kind of ignore the best favorite and underdog predictors. And for the method of victory predictions, all but one channel expect that this fight will end by KO or TKO, so basically the same as the Dominick Reyes versus Johnny Walker fight. But most of the channels, almost 75%, 49 out of 66, are picking Jiří Procházka to win by KO or TKO, and 16 for Carlos Ulberg. 0 channels are going with a submission, and there's only one channel that is picking Carlos Ulberg to win via decision. And all of the best MOV predictors are expecting that this fight will end by KO or TKO, and 3 out of 5 are picking Jiří Procházka to win. And we see the same results in odds, because the most likely outcome is a KO TKO victory for Jiří Procházka with plus 145, followed closely by a KO TKO for Carlos Ulberg with plus 180. What are some of the best betting opportunity for UFC 327? So, which fighters are picked the most by the best predictors overall, but still have good odds for good value? But as always, I keep tracking predictions over the next few days, and these best betting opportunities might change when more predictions have been tracked. And to get access to these daily updated picks and supporting the channel, consider becoming a member on my Patreon. A link can be found in the video description. For the first best betting opportunity, we have Charles Radtke. He's not such a big favorite with minus 185. But he's a huge favorite and is picked by the best predictors 100% and by the best favorite and underdog predictors also 100%. The minus 185 money line is pretty decent, but you can get plus 160 if you have him winning via decision, which is picked by 75% of the best MOV predictors and by 75% of all the channels. The next best betting opportunity is Tatiana Suarez. She is the favorite with minus 160. But she is a huge favorite in picks by the best predictors and the best favorite predictors with 7 out of 8 and 9 out of 10 for around 90%. Her moneyline odds of minus 160 are pretty good, but if you want to squeeze some extra value out of this fight, maybe you can pick her to win via decision, which gives you plus money odds of plus 125 and is picked by 5 out of 6 of the best MOV predictors. And for the last best betting opportunity, we have Swanson. In odds, the fight is basically even. But in picks, he's a huge favorite, especially by the best predictors and the best favorite predictors with 6 out of 7 and 8 out of 9. His average moneyline odds of minus 107 are already really good. But you can get a lot more if you have him winning by a KO or TKO, which is picked by 4 out of 4 of the best MOV predictors and gives you odds of plus 285. That was it for the overview video for UFC 327. Hope you enjoyed it and found it informative. If you did, then hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more overview videos like this one. Don't forget to check out my Patreon and the sponsor of this channel, sickfate.com, via the links in the video description. Hope you all have a great weekend and that you will enjoy the fights on this amazing card of UFC 327.